Hello, hello there. Hi there, friends, viewers, subscribers, etc. Or people on YouTube who's just, coming through, just passing by, or here live again, here at Hagbayon channel. As you know, Hagbayon is a channel for current events, literary stuff, content or literary content, rock music, etc., guitar music, even martial arts, okay, especially Bicol martial arts or Cimarron fighting arts, Filipino martial arts, blade culture, Philippine blade culture, which is a very important facet of Philippine culture. And our channel is also on the outdoors, on stuff like hiking, camping, bushcraft, stuff like that. Um, we still have to upload more bushcraft content. Uh, we are currently in a city and not in our property uh, in the country. So we are having a respite from our content on the outdoors, but still the channel is also for the outdoors. And what else? For prepping in survivalism. And in connection with all those topics, uh, we are also really into current events because we cannot live in a vacuum or in a capsule and not be uh, bothered by what's happening around us. And the question now is, what is really happening around us? Are we doing okay? Are you guys okay? Let's use the English language for this episode. As you know, I use the English language. I also use the Filipino or Tagalog. Well, Filipino is not really a language, strictly speaking. Tagalog is the language. Filipino is a language that is legislated and supposed to be engineered by law. What else? Let's use that language, English language for the moment. Um, why? Because we want to reach more people, even people out of the Philippines. So I hope you can hear me pretty well. The audio is fine. Yeah, what's happening around? Pandemic, etc. Recently, the president expressed optimism or openness as to him running for vice president, vice president of the Philippines. So that's why we're going to be talking about it. We'll be uploading this episode soon, and I hope you will watch it and you will comment. Uh, just trying to share my views and trying to give you guys kind of an avenue where you could also share your ideas and thoughts as what's happening to our republic. I think my recent post is on, um yeah, it's on the outdoors or EDC. But let me talk about something that is happening currently, and that is sorry about that. I'm not, as you know, in my usual spot. I'm I'm in another spot, as you can see, and I'm not where I should be. So there, let's. I'm just chilling out here, and I hope you join me. Sorry about that again. Uh, there, we cannot control our. I'm not in my usual spot, my studio. Well, a very simple studio, really. So there, our president has expressed openness as to his running for vice president. and we can talk about it. You can post your insights, ideas. Um, the question now is, if the president runs for vice president, will he be allowed? Will he be allowed by law or according to the constitution, perhaps? Will people rally behind him, or will some sectors oppose the the plan of him running? Incidentally, there is an article at Rappler published June 7. Yeah, just today. It's entitled "Can Duterte Run for Vice President? What the Constitution Says." It's written by Lian Buwan. Let's read it at least, and incorporate it here in our episode. The Constitution does not categorically prevent the president from doing so, but there's more to it than that. President Rodrigo Duterte's ruling party, PDP Laban, has formally urged him to run for vice president in the 2022 elections. Philippine presidents cannot have more than one term, but can they run for vice president upon stepping down? We take a look at what the post-dictatorship 1987 Constitution says. Section 4, Article 7 of the Constitution says the President and the Vice President shall be elected by direct vote of the people for a term of 6 years, which shall begin at noon on the 30th day of June, next following the day of the election, and shall end at noon of the same date 6 years thereafter. The President shall not be eligible for any re-election. That's a very important uh, sentence. The word "any" in the last sentence should refer both the election as president and vice president, according to the article, since the two positions were mentioned in the preceding sentences, said Far Eastern University Law Dean Mel Santamaria. So the article is quoting the law dean, or the dean of the College of Law of the Far Eastern University, Mel Santamaria. In other words, the president shall not be eligible to run for election for any of the positions, either the office of the president or the office of the vice president, Santa Maria wrote on Facebook. But re-election in our laws means election to the same office, said Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara. So this is the point of view of the Department of Justice Secretary, which is something expected actually. The plain meaning of re-election is being elected again to exactly the same office. So is the president eligible to run for vice president? Section 4 does not prohibit the president to run for any position other than the presidency in any subsequent election, said Guevara. What are the framers' intent? So usually we look at the intent, uh, the legislative intent. When we are at a loss as to the meaning of the law, we look at the so-called the legislative intent. University of the Philippines constitutional law professor John Molo acknowledged that there is no outright prohibition for a sitting president to run as vice president. But Molo said that one must look at the Constitution's great outline, an important object. By limiting a president's rule to just one term, the Constitution is permeated with mechanisms to rein in future presidents and check executive overreach, Molo wrote in a Rappler Thought Leaders piece. After all, the Constitution was crafted to safeguard the country from other dictatorship. Guevara said the framers should have expressly provided that the president shall not be eligible for any re-election to run for vice president at any subsequent national election, but they didn't. So they didn't. Molo said that while Section 4 is silent on that, the Constitution also did not expressly write the words separation of powers and checks and balances. But those are two fundamental principles in Philippine law. And separation of powers, a reading that expands the power of one branch, for example, the president, always comes at the cost of weakening the other two branches. Think of the law of conservation of matter, said Molo. Guevara said his was a purely legal perspective and that he will not comment from any other point of view. Christian Monsod, one of the framers of the Constitution, said Duterte running for vice president is an ingenious and insidious move to circumvent the constitutional provision on re-election. Duterte ends his term in June 2022. The presidential elections will be held on May 9, 2022. So here, that's the entire article by Rappler, uh, written by Lian Buwan. There are opposing opinions as to the matter. As we read earlier, the president, rather, the dean of the College of Law of Far Eastern University is of the opinion that the president cannot run for vice president because um, the prohibition under Article Section 4, no, under Section 4, Article 7 of the Constitution pertains to both president and the vice president. So that the prohibition to run uh, covers the president. Okay. As he said, any, the word any in the last sentence should refer to both re-election as president and vice president, since the two positions were mentioned in the preceding sentences, said Far Eastern University Law Dean Mel Santamaria. So that's his opinion on the matter. And however, the framers of the Constitution, they're saying that apparently the president can actually run for the vice presidency. So there, will he be allowed? Um, that's the opinion of the experts. Uh, as a student of law, also, I think there's indeed no prohibition from running as vice president and as to any other position except for president. The prohibition is the prohibition is for the president to not be eligible for any re-election as president. So therefore, he can run. Sorry about that. He can run as president. Um, for example, he can also run for other positions such as, say, mayor or say congressman. So in the case of the former president Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, so in the case of former president Estrada, was actually allowed to run for other positions, after his uh, his term and his term ended. So sorry about that again. As I said, I'm not in my usual spot, and there's so much domestic noise everywhere. So there, all right. So yeah, another thing is, can he win it? Can he win the presidency if ever? Well, as you know, the president has his share of supporters and also has his share of detractors. So it's something to be found out later. But definitely, being an incumbent, he has the machinery of government uh, on his side. So he will definitely have some sort of advantage because of that. And another question is, can he be president again? That's another question. Of course, as we said, he can run for the vice president, although there are various opposing opinion on the matter. But if you really look at it, even if the general intent of the Constitution, the general legislative intent of the framers of the Constitution was to really avoid and prevent another dictatorship. If you really look at the provision under Article 7, um, indeed the president is not disallowed from running as vice president. He's only disallowed from running for re-election as president, but not but not uh, for vice president. So the word there, any re-election actually pertains to any re-election as president, any re-election as president. As we mentioned earlier, um, President Estrada ran for another re-election, but not for president, but for mayor. Former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, she ran for Congress. She ran for Congress, so and she was allowed. Um, and in 2001, she actually succeeded. She actually succeeded President Estrada. So therefore, there's a question now: can President Duterte be president again by succession? Yeah, that's a good question. Uh, I don't know what the constitutional law experts will say about this, but I am inclined to say that, of course, he can. The prohibition is on re-election. The prohibition is on re-election as president, not for succession. Succession as president. For example, he wins the vice presidential race, and then something happens to the president. President Duterte, if ever, will be allowed to succeed as president again. So this is one thing we need to think about if we are going to consider voting for him as vice president next time. We have to consider that when he becomes vice president again, you know, there is a possibility that he could be president again because he could succeed as president, okay, from being a vice president. Because that's really the purpose of the office of the vice president. Unlike in the local government where the vice mayor is actually, part of the local sanggunian, the vice president of the Philippines, as per the executive branch, is only there to be a reserve, to be a waiting president. If ever the president, is incapacitated or he dies or something, he resigns, etc. So that's of course the vice president can be part of the cabinet, but then again, as we said, unlike in the local government, the vice mayor has a built-in function as member of the sanggunian, but not in the case of the vice president of Philippines. Okay, the vice president sits as a kind of a reserve, for the president. So that's for our current events episode. If President Duterte runs for vice president, so will he be allowed? Will he be allowed? Can he win it? And can he be president again? These are important questions. That's for our uh, current events episode, and which is very much part of our prepping and survivalism episode. So thanks for joining me, Jason here for the Agbayon channel. Okay, remember the pen is mightier with a sword.